Hello everyone, and you're very welcome to the latest webinar from Teagasc Longford and Roscommon. Donal McCabe is my name. I'm a Drystock Advisor based in Longford. Tonight we will be focusing primarily on the schemes, and we'll cover a little bit on the fertiliser register database as well. I'd just like to introduce our speakers for this evening. Colm Murray, who's based in Teagasc Castlerea. Colm will be covering a little bit on the TAM scheme this evening. And Kevin McGarry, also based in Teagasc Castlerea, will be covering Kevin will be giving us an update on the acre scheme, and also he's going to be doing a little bit on the fertiliser register database also. Caillin McLoughlin, based in Teagasc Roscommon, is going to help us with the questions also. So, Colm, I'll hand over to you to start, and you can just give us an update on the TAM scheme.
Okay, thanks, Donal. Can you see that?
Yeah, that's fine.
So thanks, Donal, for introducing me there. So, as Donal said, my name is Colm Murray, and I'm working in the Teagasc office in Castlerea, and I'm going to talk a bit about the new TAMS scheme, TAMS 3. So TAMS, I suppose TAMS 2 was there previous to TAMS 3. So TAMS 2 ran from 2016 till 2022. TAMS 3 started up then in 2023, and hopefully that will run until 2027. So TAMS 3, it's broadly in line with the previous TAMS scheme. It's pretty similar. There's no link between TAMS 2 and TAMS 3 when calculating investment ceilings. So if you had applied for TAMS 2 and received money from the Department of Agriculture in TAMS 2, that money you received doesn't count for TAMS 3. So for TAMS 3, it's a new scheme, so you're starting off at zero again, say, for TAMS 3. There's some new investments added in TAMS 3, and there's some investments removed. So we can talk a bit about that in a minute. So there's many different schemes or many different sections within the TAMS 3. So there's the animal welfare safety nutrient scheme. So that would involve really farm buildings and tanks. That was there in the previous scheme, and it's there again in this scheme. So the the grant aid for that is 90,000 at 40% rate. The dairy equipment scheme, that's there now again. There has been some changes for the dairy equipment scheme. So for a new dairy farmer, for putting in a new milking machine, he's capped at a 10-unit machine. That's all he'll get paid on. The feed system is also removed for the dairy equipment scheme. So there's no option there to apply for meal feeders or augers under the new dairy equipment scheme. And the other thing then is dairy farmers or new dairy farmers that apply for the dairy equipment scheme there's a cap put on them that they can't expand cow numbers above 120 cows for the 5 years after they apply for the scheme. The farm safety capital investment scheme now, that's a new part of the TAMS as well. So that's granted. There's 90,000 available, and that's at 60%. There's a lot of new options there you can pick. Say there's the bale slicer for splitting bales and removing the plastic. That's a new option there that's added to the farm safety capital scheme, and there's been a lot of interest in that. the low emission slurry spreading then, that was there before, it's there again. There's 40,000 available for low emission slurry equipment at a grant rate of 60%. The main change with that is that the dribble bar has been removed from an option of applying for. You can apply for a trail and shoe, but the dribble bar has been removed. You can also apply for umbilical systems and pipe systems, and you can apply for retrofitting a trail and shoe on an existing tanker. The other thing that you need to watch out for as well with the low emission slurry equipment is that if you're stocked, say if you're stocked above a certain rate, you could be, due to regulations with the department, you're obliged, or you're supposed to spread your slurry low emissions. So if you're in that category where you're stocked, say above 150 kilos of nitrogen, you have to do your slurry. You have to spread your slurry low emissions. So if you're in that category, the department aren't going to pay a grant on that equipment if you're in that category where you have to do that. The organic capital investment scheme, then, that's again it's 90,000 at 60%. So that's available to organic farmers. You have to be an organic farmer. You have to be in the organic society. I suppose there's a lot of machinery available in the organic capital investment scheme. There's toppers, disc mowers, loaders, buckets, and straw blowers. So there's a lot of machinery available in the organic capital investment scheme. So them three options there, they are at the 60% rate, where the previous two on the other slide there, the animal welfare, safety and nutrient storage, and the dairy equipment, that's at 40%. So other options there that's available then is the solar capital investment scheme. So that's a new option now there for TAMS. That's granted, or there's 90,000 available for solar equipment at 60%, 60% grant or 60% rate. So that could be an option maybe for dairy farmers, for heating water, for washing milk in parlours. The woman farming capital investment scheme, then that's also a new option on the TAMS. So that's available for a woman farmer that's on a herd number. She has to be between 18 and 67 to be eligible for the young farmer grant, or the women farming grant. That's available at 60%, or there's 90,000 available at a grant rate of 60%. So for any woman farmer that has got onto a herd number, say after 23, they need to have the department, or the green cert, or have to be a trained farmer, whereas women farmers that were on, or that have a herd number prior to 2023 are eligible for this grant, and that's at 60%. The young farmer capital investment scheme, then, that's available for young farmers aged between 18 and 41. I suppose if you are in that category, you wouldn't want to be leaving it until you're 40 or 41, because the application has to be done. So don't be leaving it till the last minute. The other thing that's there with the young farmer scheme then as well is that, which is unfair, is you have to be less than 5 years farming. So I suppose what I've seen does happen, you could have a young farmer there, he gets onto the herd number at 18, he's mad to go farming, and he gets onto the young farm, or he gets a herd number, but he mightn't have much funds available because he's new to farming, and then say 5 years come when he's 23, he's his 5 years farming done, he's 5 years on a herd number, and then he's not eligible for the young farmer capital investment scheme. So that has to be, you have to be careful with that, that you're only classed as a young farmer for 5 years. The tillage capital investment scheme, it wouldn't be, I suppose it wouldn't be a thing I'm dealing with really much because where I'm based, but that's available to tillage farmers. I think you have to have 15 hectares of tillage to be eligible for the tillage capital investment scheme. The pig and poultry capital investment scheme, then you have to be pig or poultry farmer, and there's 500,000 available to farmers that's in that category. So I'll just leave up that table there now. That gives the investment ceilings for each investment, and it gives the grant rate available for each of them sections. So I'll just leave that up there that you can have a quick look at it.
Colm, I suppose while people are taking in the information on that table, there's a load of different, obviously, investments within each of those categories. What would be the easiest way, Colm, of going in just to see what investments are available? Maybe you're coming to it as part of your presentation, possibly. There's
Yeah,
an
well,
Excel
Donal,
sheet.
you could if you could, I suppose all of the different options are available on the Department of Agriculture. The full list there is available there, so you can have a look at that. Or when you're doing your application, they're all the different categories, so you can click on them categories or them parts, and you can search then all the investments in the those main investments and sub investments. So I suppose that they'll give you a breakdown of each investment that's available.
Yeah, as you say, it's there on the department's website. There's an Excel list for it, Colm, and it's in the terms and conditions of each as well, I think so.
Yeah.
But there's a load of different. You definitely wouldn't have time in this webinar to go through them all, anyhow.
No, there's hundreds of them.
Yeah.
So I suppose anyone that probably is interested in TAMS, the best thing to do is organize a meeting with your advisor and just to see what's available and what you'd consider doing. So as I said there, the grant aid that's available, it's at 40% or 60%. So it just depends on what you're applying for and what type of farmer you are. So if you're a woman farmer or a young farmer, and it just depends on which section you're applying for. So as I said there, there's a maximum of 90,000 available, except for pig and poultry and the low emission equipment. So the pig and poultry, there's 500,000 available. For the low emission, there's 40,000. So previous in TAMS 2, there was 80,000. So in the TAMS 3 now, there's 90,000. There's 90,000 there available. So then again, there's a separate 90,000 for your solar capital investment scheme, and a 40,000 available for your low emission slurry spreading equipment. So if you apply for TAMS, and if you build a shed under the animal storage of nutrients, and you use up your 90,000, you can still go and apply for low emissions slurry of equipment and get a separate 40,000 for your trail and shoe or a new tanker. Farm partnerships, then they're eligible to 160,000. There's a difference in farm partnerships and a joint herd number. So a farm partnership, that has to be registered with the Department of Agriculture, whereas a joint herd number is just adding someone onto the herd number. So joint herd numbers are not eligible for the joint ceiling of 160,000. So they're not eligible for the 60% rate unless all are eligible. So a joint venture between a father and son, they're not eligible for the young farmer capital investment scheme. Whereas if they were in a registered farm partnership and there was a young trained farmer, they would be eligible for the young farmer, the higher grant rate. And then if a joint venture between two young trained farmers, eligible for joint ventures between two young trained farmers eligible for the young farmer capital investment scheme, but at a ceiling of 90,000. So if there was two young trained farmers in a partnership, they'd be eligible for the 160,000. Whereas if they're in the joint herd number, they're just eligible to the 90,000. And if there's two young trained farmers, they're eligible for the 60% rate. Whereas if it's a father and son, they're not eligible for the 60% rate unless they're in a partnership. So hopefully TAMS will be open until 2027. So TAMS opens in tranches. The next tranche closes the 12th of April 24. So you might see on the paper or the Farmer's Journal, TAMS is closing, and there's no need to, I suppose, panic really, because once TAMS closes, it opens the next day. So when TAMS closes on the 12th of April, the next tranche will open on the 13th. So I suppose this is there to allow the department maybe to spread the kind of the funding, and they know what money they need to make available. So if you hear TAMS is closing, you don't need to worry, because it opens in tranches and it'll open up again the next day. So approval after tranche closing date. So if you do your TAMS application today and you put in your application, the department aren't going to look at your application until after the tranche closes. So if you put in your application today, they're not going to look at that application until after the 12th of April, until that tranche closes. Then don't start your work or purchase until after approval. So if you apply to build a shed under TAMS, you can't start that job or you can't start that building until you have got approved. You're not meant to purchase equipment either until after approval. There may be an option to purchase mobile equipment once you do your application before approval, but you need to be very careful. You can purchase the equipment before you're approved, but you need to be very careful, because if for some reason your application didn't get through and you would purchase the equipment, you're leading yourself to be ineligible. So you have to be very definitely for fixed equipment. You can't start the job until you're approved. Maybe an option for mobile equipment, but you need to be very careful. Commencement of work 5 days for some concrete work. So if you're doing a tank under TAMS and you tie your steel, you have to let the department know then that this steel is tied, this steel is in the tank, because they kind inspect you then to make sure that that the steel is tied in the tank. So you have to let the department know, and you can't just tie your steel and pour your concrete. You have to tell the department that you have your steel tied, and they can inspect you then. Marking of applications. So if there's a big uptake in TAMS, your application is marked or scored. So it doesn't mean if you apply for TAMS and they don't let you through, you can reapply. So it's not the end of the world. But if there's a big uptake, they do score them. I suppose that your score kind of, if you're a young farmer, that might help your score, or if you're in an area where you get a disadvantaged payment, that helps your score as well. So that's just done when there is a big uptake in TAMS. So we'll just talk a bit now on how to apply. So you have to create an application on your AgFood account. So your application has to be done online. There's no such thing as doing a paper application now. It's all online, like all the other schemes with the Department of Agriculture. So you can do that on your own AgFood account, or you can get your advisor to do it. But a lot of I suppose some of the mobile stuff is straightforward enough, but some of the bigger stuff for sheds and buildings, you'd need your advisor to do that. So when you have your application created, then you go into your investments and you can pick out. Well, first of all, you have to decide what you're applying for, whether it's farm safety or young farmer or low emission slurry equipment. So you have to pick the category, create your application, and then you pick your investment, and then there could be a sub investment. So you could go into your low emission slurry equipment, and you go into your trail and shoe, and then you have to pick your say what size for a shed, say the dimensions, the area, maybe for fencing, for sheep fencing, you have to put in your length. You might have to put down the number of, if you're getting, I suppose, sheep fencing, the number of gates you're applying for. Your slurry tanker, then you have to put in the volume of the tanker. And then you need need drawings, and for some options then you need planning. So you'll need planning permission for any building or tank that you're doing. And you'll need drawings and a farmyard plan of where the investment is going. So once you do your application, you have to wait to get your approval. Once you get approval, then you can start the work. So 1 year after approval, the work is supposed to be completed. So you can apply for an extension, but you have to let the department know. You need so before you do your claim, you need a tax clearance cert. So you'll have to get that tax clearance cert from your accountant to make sure that you're tax compliant. You need to have a safety course completed within 5 years. So if you've a safety course done 6 years ago for TAMS 2, that's not eligible. You need to do a new safety course. You need the certificates then you need for your claim. So say for your concrete, that has to be a certain standard concrete. You'll need a concrete cert. For your steel, you'll need a cert. For your slats, you'll need certs. For your electrician, then he'll have to have a cert as well. So for all the work you do, it all has to be certified, and all of the material needs the certifications. You need to keep all your invoices in while you're doing the building. So all them invoices for whatever builders you get, you have to keep them invoices and you upload them then in your claim. You'll need ownership of the land wherever you're putting the investment. So you need to have proof that you own the land. So you'll need a folio and a map to do that. You can do some of your own labor then and use some of your own machinery to do some of the work. There's an option there if you wanted to do some of the work yourself, you can apply and do some of the labor yourself, or use some of your machinery, and you can put a cost in again that. I suppose the other thing then is this can all be inspected. So you need to be, once you get approved, and you have to kind of keep within what you were approved for. So all of the investments, they can be inspected. I suppose the main thing is the bank account too. A lot of people could get caught where they'd buy stuff out of their own personal account and not through the farm account. If you have a TAMS inspection, they'll check. They'll want to see the statements to see where the money came out of to do the building. The Department of Agriculture, so you can look up there on the Department of Agriculture and you can see all the costings for each investment, and all the costings are before VAT. So you can look to see they'll have a costing on everything. It could be a linear costing or a or on an area costing, and I suppose the terms and conditions then are all available online. So that's kind of it, Donal. I'll take any questions in the end.
Yeah, thanks very much, Colm. A very comprehensive overview there of the TAMS 3 program. Look, I suppose as you were saying, there is an awful lot in it. I suppose it's just a
It's
case
just
of,
an overview, really.
yeah, and just looking online in the terms and conditions, and as you say very rightly, Colm, just to get in touch with your advisor, just to see what would suit your farm.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll take questions at the end after both presentations, and can I just remind people is that if they do have any questions, just to put them in the Q&A tab on the on your screen there, and as I say, we'll do our very best to get to them after Kevin's presentation. So Kevin has his presentation put up there in regard to the acre scheme. So he's going to give us an overview of the acre scheme and also touch on the fertilizer register as well. So Kevin, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks very much, Donal. As Donal said, my name is Kevin McGarry. I'm in the Teagasc office here in Castlerea. I'm going to do a very brief, no more than the terms, just a brief overview of what's going on with acres at the minute and what we can expect in the coming season for the nutrient management plan and the fertilizer register. So if we start off there with the acres, tranche 1 and 2, we can start with a small bit of good news in that, all the acres all the tranche 2 applicants that were made before the Christmas have been accepted. So it was over 9,000 entrants accepted in. 4,000 was the budget to put on it, but they took the whole 9,000. So that gives us a total of 55,000 in total over the 2 tranches in acres now, which is a substantial amount of farmers. I suppose what we would have seen before the Christmas there is almost everyone with an interest in getting into acres is now in acres. The only ones that are still maybe slightly disadvantaged are new herd owners, so young farmers that have recently got the herd number we said last year. They're still left out of acres, so they'll be waiting on a future tranche if that comes. But for the time being, we're at 55,000 in total, so it's good. So you will, if you've joined there before the Christmas 2023 into tranche 2, you will receive an acceptance letter and the maps in the coming weeks. It's important you retain those maps because your advisor may not have access, or at least we didn't have access to those maps during the year last year. So it's very important that you hold on to your map when you get it, put it somewhere safe, because you will need to revert back to that through the course of the year as you're carrying out your actions and want to know what goes where and what you have to do. So it's important to hold on to those. The other thing you'll receive before you receive your map, you'll receive an acceptance letter. Now, the acceptance letter will state all your actions. It'll state that you're in acres since the 1st of January 2024, but it will also state what tier you went into acres at. So, for example, if you went in as a tier 1 rare breed farmer, even though they let everyone in, and it was the same case last year, they let everyone in, it's still very important that you carry out the tier that you were let in for. So if you went in as a tier 1 rare breed farmer, it's very important that you carry out the conditions of a rare breed farmer. And also, if you went in tier 2 with 10 trees in a riparian zone, again, very important that you plant those 10 trees in that riparian zone, or your whole acres plan, it could be in jeopardy or could be at risk if you don't carry out your tiered action. So that first letter you get that says what tier you are, very important, and then your maps, very important. So if you can hold on to both of those, really put them in your filing cabinet there. So if we just look at some of the deadlines that are coming up for tranche 1 predominantly, but a lot of these deadlines will apply to tranche 2 as well, plus 1 year. So these are some of the more common ones. The first one there in the highlighted blue is all fencing for tranche 1 should be completed at this stage. So anywhere there was a drain that had to be fenced off or a riparian zone that had to be fenced off, all that fencing should be done since the 15th of the 5th, the 15th of May last year. That's going to be important as well for the tranche 2 applicants, as the acceptance letters may not come out till the end of this month or maybe early April, but that deadline will still be there. The 15th of the 5th, 2024 is when you'll have to have your fencing done. So it's quite quickly after you get your acceptance letter, you need to get your fencing completed if you've chosen them actions. The second deadline there, that'll be tranche 1 applicants that closed off ground on the 1st of October 23. That ground is eligible to be opened again in the 31st of the 3rd, the end of this month. That's the geese and swans ground that was closed off to leave grazing there for the geese. So that can be opened up again at the end of the month. The other deadlines for the end of this month will be planting of hedges, planting of trees in riparian zones, and tree planting, the hardwood trees in other parts of the farm. So if you've picked any of those actions on your plan, the deadline for them is fast approaching. So a lot of people would have picked that 4th action down there, planting trees in a riparian zone. So again, that was a tiered action for a lot of people. So it's very important that that action is carried out. If we look at some of the other deadlines a bit further away, the copsing and laying of hedges, which is the rejuvenation of hedges measure, both of those deadlines are the 31st of the 12th, 24. So at the end of this year. That seems like a good while away, but those actions can be only carried out in the closed period for inside of the closed period for hedge cuttings. Obviously, you can't go and coppice a hedge in the middle of the summer. It has to be in the closed period there. Low emissions slurry spreading. If that was an option you picked in acres 1, the returns should have been sent back by now. So you should have sent in to your advisor or directly yourself a return stating how much slurry you spread and where you spread it. Acres required you to spread all your slurry with low emissions if that was an action you took there. The other deadline that's coming up shortly is the soil sampling deadline on the 15th of May this year. So soil sampling is a requirement of acres, and as such, everyone needs to soil sample one sample for every 5 hectares of ground on the farm. So up to 40 hectares, so a max of 8 samples. So that needs to be carried out by the 15th of May, and they need to be uploaded onto the acres portal by your advisor. Another deadline that's not been decided yet is the rare breeds deadline. So if you chose rare breeds in tranche 1 of acres, you will have to make a return to say, I have this amount of rare breeds and their details. We haven't yet got the facility to upload those yet, but it's just something to keep in mind. That's something you'll have to do probably around April time this year. Grassland scoring. So anyone that chose the low input grassland or anyone that was in the cooperation zone for acres tranche 1, your ground would have been scored in 2023. Those scores are predominantly why the payments have been held up, calculating those scores. But you can, if you wish, choose to bring forward your scoring. So you need to score your ground in year 1, year 3, and year 5. But if you wish, in consultation with your advisor, you can choose to score in year 2. So you could do year 1, year 2, and maybe year 4 and get all your scoring done like that if you choose. If you don't decide to bring it forward, it'll be year 1, year 3, and year 5. Interim payments, I suppose this is where some of the controversy has been around. So as I said, the scoring seemed to delay the process, as well as the fact that they let the full tranche of applicants in tranche 1. So they possibly overloaded the system slightly and couldn't get the payments out or couldn't get them calculated. So what they've decided to do is make interim payments there a couple of weeks ago. They paid the general farmers 4,000 and the CP farmers 5,000. I suppose one thing we have to be very careful of is if the 4,000 or the 5,000 is more than the payment you were due to get if acres had been paid out on time, well, then a clawback situation will be in place there where they will take the extra amount that you got back from the next payment you get. So that's just something to be aware of there. So I suppose that's a very quick run through on acres, and I wanted to keep it short to give you enough time to ask more individual questions there if you have particular issues that you're concerned about. I suppose for the tranche 2 applicants, it'd be very advisable to maybe go through your actions again at this time with your advisor, maybe just brush up on what needs to be done and some of the deadlines coming forward. So the other thing that I want to talk about here tonight is the nutrient management planning. I suppose this is something that's been brought to the fore a little bit more this year by the fertilizer register. And just to explain what the register is, and we've gone through this on previous webinars. If you wish to purchase fertilizer, including lime, from the 1st of September last year, you must be on the fertilizer register. So if you go out this spring to the co-op and look to buy fertilizer, they will ask you for your herd number. If your herd number has not been put up on the system, you won't be eligible to buy. You won't be able to buy that fertilizer. So you need to register you need to get your name up on the register, which a lot of people have done in the back end last year. And every sale then will be recorded at the point of sale. Every purchase will be recorded at the point of sale. So when you go into co-op and you buy your ton of 18612, that'll be automatically recorded and go up on the DAFM on the department website, department own internal website. Closing stocks on the farm must be entered between the 14th of September and the 15th of October every year. So once you register, you go away, you buy your fertilizer this year. If you have fertilizer left over in the back end after the 15th of September, it needs to be registered. If you do not have fertilizer left over, you need to put in a declaration of nil stock in the yard or zero stock in the yard. And that has to be done by the 15th of October following. So that has to be done every year from now on. Nitrate regulations must be adhered to. So that's what we're going to cover now a little bit in the nutrient planning. So I suppose the first thing to go there is soil samples. So soil samples are required for acres, one for every 5 hectares. If you're not in acres, they're not required. But if you do not take a soil sample, your ground is assumed to be index 3 for P. Now, I suppose I'm going to try and keep this as manageable as possible, but it's important that we know 2 things really: where our indexes are on the farm. If we have no soil samples, we're considered index 3. If we do have soil samples, it's important that we know what index we are for P. The second thing we need to know is what nitrogen bracket we're in, and we'll get to that in a second. So the question we're getting probably a lot this spring is, do I need a nutrient management plan? I suppose what a nutrient management plan will help you decide is how much fertilizer you can purchase and spread, whether or not you can import slurry, and what kind of fertilizer you should spread, and whether or not you need to spread lime. So I suppose we would be encouraging nutrient management plans from an adherence to the regulations point of view, but there's also a great saving that can be made there in using the right fertilizer in the right place. So we would like to think that we'll keep you on the right side of the regulations, but we'll also be able to add value to your fertilizer purchases and your fertilizer use across the whole farm. So if you were to go for a nutrient management plan, this is what you would see on your front page. This is some of the information that's covered in it. So you get a farm summary of your soil fertility. So for every soil sample you take, we assign that to a paddock. We map it out, or a field. We map it out on the system, and that gives you a graph of where your fertilizer would be best suited and what type of fertilizer to use. You get a lime report, you get a fertilizer plan, and we can make notes on application rates and timings and Is there information that might be valuable to you to get the best use out of your fertilizer? So this table now, I don't want to go too deep into it. It's a big enough table, so I don't turn straight off when you see it. But I suppose what we're looking at here really is our nitrogen levels, what nitrogen bracket we're in. So the way you find out what nitrogen bracket you're in is if you go onto your ag food account, if you have that facility, and go to N&P statements, it'll be the first line at the very top of the statement will tell you how many kilograms of nitrogen per hectare you're producing, organic nitrogen. Alternatively, if you make a quick call to your advisor, he'll be able to check that easily enough for you. So I suppose the bracket that most of us fall into is that first bracket of less than 90, or even the second of 90 to 130. If we look at that, the chemical nitrogen allowance for both of those are 114 kilos, or 91 units. The reason I put up this slightly larger table than needed, so really all we need is that first two columns. If we look at the third column over, the suggested cattle nitrogen chemical allowance or chemical suggestion, so the department says we can use up to 114 kilos. Teagasc recommends that at less than 90 kilos of organic nitrogen or a lower stocking rate, you most likely only need about 30 units of bought-in chemical in. If you've chosen extensive grazing in acres, you're only allowed to spread 40 kilos of chemical in. That's about 36 odd units. So I suppose it's not a table I'd be expecting you to remember, but it's just to give you an idea of the allowances and possibly the recommendations. So the recommendation could possibly be a lot lower than your actual allowance, depending on your stocking rate. I suppose this one, this is the P table. So this is probably a little bit more relevant to lower stocked farmers, in that none of us, in most cases, are going to go over our nitrogen allowances. 91 units of nitrogen allowed, were very few people spreading more than that across the whole farm. So that includes grazing as well as silage ground. Where we may get caught is the P allowances. So if we look at this P table, we have our indexes across the top there, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And down the side, we have our nitrogen brackets. So again, everything's based off your stocking rate. So if we look at that middle line there, 86 to 130, that would encompass nearly this whole region's stocking rate. Very few people over 130, and most people above 86. So if we take that and we assume no soil samples, we're at index 3 there for P allowance. And you can see if you look down the table, so the middle line there and over to beneath index 3, you have an allowance of 8 units per acre of chemical P. So those tables aren't terribly digestible, but if we look at a quick example here, if we take a farmer with 40 acres of ground, he has no soil samples, so we assume he's index 3. He's allowed to spread roughly 5 units of P per acre at index 3. So that's 200 units over the whole farm. If we divide that by 6 units, that's the 6 units from a bag of 18612. That gives us 33 bags of chemical P he can spread, 33 bags of 18612 that he could spread on that 40 acres. We know that there's 20 bags in a ton. So that gives that farmer 1.5 tons of 18612 that he would be allowed to purchase this year. So that's quite small on a 40-acre farm. So it's just something to watch out for. If we have the soil samples taken and we're index 1s and 2s for P, well then obviously our allowances go up. And this is where your nutrient management plan really comes into its own, in that we can take all those variables, put them into the plan, and give you a very accurate tonnage of what you can buy and what you need to buy. So rather than kind of asking us for a general piece of advice, in this case, the more exact advice is going to be more value to you. So that again, that's a very quick run through of 3 fairly big subjects there, but I'm conscious I want to leave enough time for questions. So I'm going to hand back to Donal there, and I think we'd take questions on that, if that's all right.
Thanks very much, Kevin. Yeah, look, very worthwhile presentation in that I suppose you're just emphasizing there, Kevin, like soil samples very useful, obviously from a nutrient management point of view in terms of what fertilizers needed where, but without soil samples, you are very restricted in most cases in terms of the amount of phosphorus that can be applied. And with the fertilizer register, there's going to be no hiding for either like what you purchase will be there, and the department can see it. So
Yeah, so if
farmers
if
will
you're
be
if
very
you're
mindful.
working off index 1 soils there without soil samples and you're assuming index 3, well, you could be wasting an awful lot of money there spreading straight nitrogens on index 1s, and not knowing about it, like, so soil samples are definitely the way to go. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so look, thanks everyone for for your questions. There's a lot of questions coming in. It's still not too late to put in questions. If you have something to ask, suppose now is the time to do it. So, Caillin, I'll hand over to you. You're the man that's going to be in charge of the questions for us now tonight. So look, I'll let you ask the lads there what has come through so far.
Perfect. Cheers, Donal. Thank you. So yeah, there's a few questions in here, so I suppose we'll kick it off. The first one there, if you apply for TAMS and you don't go ahead with it, is that an issue then going forward or anything?
No, that's not a problem. You can apply for TAMS and you can get approved, and if you don't go ahead, that's no problem, and you can still go and reapply again. So that's no problem.
Perfect. Yeah, so that's no issue going forward. So then the next one is, does the dribble bar qualify as low emissions under TAMS?
No, the dribble bar doesn't qualify. That was removed. It was there and it was a very popular option in TAMS 2, but that has been removed for TAMS 3.
Perfect. Very good. So here's one for you, Kevin, actually now. How can a farmer go about soil samples now if they haven't anything done?
Yeah, so I suppose your first point of contact to be your local Teagasc advisor if you're a client of Teagasc. So we have people out soil sampling at the minute. If you would like to get soil samples taken maybe ahead of that, we can provide you with a core to take your own samples, and we can give you some guidance on how to take those samples. So it's important that they're taken right to give you accurate information back. But yeah, contact your local Teagasc advisor there.
Perfect. Thanks, Kevin. Another question here. Would you advise a farmer stocked at over 100 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare in 2024 to apply for less equipment in 2024, as that action is mandatory in 2025 and therefore ineligible next year?
Yeah, definitely. If a farmer is planning on doing the low emission slurry spreading, definitely he should go apply now, because them bans are going to be reduced every year. So even I suppose the lower stocked lads, maybe the lower stocked lads each year, that's going to be reduced. So definitely, if you are thinking that way, go ahead and do it, because you'll end up ruling yourself out and not being eligible, because you'll be forced to do your slurry that way regardless, and they won't pay you if the department are saying you have to do your slurry that way because you're stocked over 100. You won't get grant aid on it then. So definitely, if you're thinking of doing it, go ahead and get it done, or do your application.
Perfect. Thanks, Colm. Another question here. Can I apply for the Women's Farmer Scheme if my husband's name is also on the herd number, even though I am the farmer?
No, you're not eligible. You'd have to be solely on your own on the herd number. It's not eligible to a joint herd number. So that'd rule you out for that.
Perfect, thank you.
Unless you're maybe in a partnership, there could be an option, but just on a joint herd number, no, you're not eligible.
Perfect. Here's one for you, Kevin. On acres, what happens if my soil test is late, as in after the 15th of May this year?
Your your advance payment to be held up. So if you were in tranche 1 and you got paid before the Christmas, you'll be due the remaining 30% of that payment this year now in the spring this year, probably April, May time. If you don't have your soil samples uploaded by 15th of May, that payment will be withheld. If you continue then not to upload samples before the back end, your whole second payment would be withheld.
I don't think there's. I didn't see this in writing, Kevin, and I'm open to correction here, but I think the ultimate deadline, as you say, your payments, your balance and payments will be held up. But I think the ultimate deadline, from the last I heard, was the end of the year. So that if you didn't have soil samples taken,
If you don't have it by the end of the year, they'll hold your
well,
second year payment.
or that you could be thrown out. Now, look, again, I didn't see that in
Possibly.
writing, but
Yeah, I didn't hear that. No, but yeah, possibly. Yeah, I think if you can get it done at all between now and the 15th, ideal. But definitely, you'd want to be looking at early in the back end if it comes to that. But really, now is a good time before any nutrients go out, any slurry goes out, or any fertilizer goes out. Now is a good time so you can get it done.
Another question here. How long roughly would I be waiting for TAM's approval if I submit an application next week for a slatted shed?
Well, you can submit your application. I suppose nothing will be done with that application until after that tranche closes. So that closes the 12th of April. So they won't look at your application till after the 12th of April, and probably waiting, it could be 4 to 6 months. I know there was a lot of issues there with TAMS and getting approval, and I think they were having IT issues, so you could be waiting 4 to 6 months. Or did you hear anything else, Donal?
no, well, exactly as you say, Colm, it'll be based on when the tranche finishes. So, you know, if the tranche, let's say, was this current tranche is due to finish in April, so no applications under this tranche will be looked at until after the tranche closes in April, and then typically you'd be expecting around 3 months later your approval would issue. So for a farmer applying for a slatted shed now, it's unlikely they'll get approval before July.
Perfect. Does lime have to be added to the register?
Yeah, if you go to your quarry to buy lime, from now on they'll ask you for your herd number. Yeah, so it'll be automatically put up there. Yeah.
Perfect. Another question here. For TAMS, if one has only one bank account for all purposes, including farming, will that be good enough?
Yeah, that is okay if you're using one bank account and all your farm transactions are going through it. That's okay. I suppose the problem is if you have a farm account and then you have your own personal account and you're kind of using both of them, that's when there's an issue. But if you're using the one account for all your transactions, that there's no problem.
Perfect, Colin. Cheers.
I suppose another issue is where it could be say a joint herd number or a partnership where say where they're not putting everything through the partnership account, where they might be, say, the father and son, say, just the dad could have his own bank account and the son could have his bank account, and then they could have they're supposed to have a joint farm account, and if they were doing transactions through their own personal account and not doing them through the farm account, that's kind of when there does be an issue.
Cheers, thank you. The next question here, what would the minimum amount to spend to get TAMS? I'm thinking of buying a sheep race, and I'm just wondering, would it cost enough to be eligible?
Yeah, 2,000 is the minimum. So you have to, if you do an application and if it's under 2,000, they'll it's not eligible. They'll just rule it out straight away. It won't get through the process. So you have to put in an application for over 2,000. You don't have to claim on that then. Say you could put in for over 2,000 and put in a few other bits, and then when you get approval, you could maybe apply for less. But to put in for doing the application, it has to be over 2,000.
Perfect. An acres one here again. I joined acres last year. Can I add an additional option such as grassland scoring this year?
And no, once the acres application is submitted before the Christmas, it can't be edited at all. The only option you do have once it's been submitted is you can remove actions, but no, you can't change or add any actions at all. No.
Perfect. An acres one here again. If I took extensive soil samples in 23, do I retake samples again in 24?
No, so any soil, this wonders this for tranche 1 or tranche 2. For tranche 1, any samples taken after the 1st of the 1st 2022 are eligible. And I'm not sure if tranche 2 is 1st of the 1st 23, but yeah, so definitely the 1st of the 1st 2022 for tranche 1.
Yes. Perfect, thank you. On to another question here. Are payments under TAMS 3 only applicable to purchase of new equipment?
Yeah, it has to be. It has to be new equipment. Whether that's handling facilities or machinery under the organic scheme, it has to be all new equipment. You can't go buying second-hand material. It has to be new equipment.
Good man, Colm. Another one here. If a building has an internal agitation points, is it eligible to replace the slats in the shed?
No, if there's any internal agitating points in that building, it's not eligible. Or even if that building is that you're doing, even that building that you're replacing the slats in, if it's linked to another building with an internal agitation point, it's not eligible. And even for other sections in the TAMS, say for rewiring sheds or calf and cameras, if there's an internal agitating point in them buildings, it's not eligible for any of them actions either.
Yeah, you're correct in that column. I know, I suppose just to jump in there, because I've done a couple of these applications in the last 12 months or so. There is you can get TAMS approval or TAMS grant aid for extending a slatted tank outside the dimensions of the building. So you could get grant aid to provide an external agitation point on a slatted tank, and then you can replace the slats and get grant aid to replace the slats as well. So that could be an option worth looking at. If it was a case that you had only internal agitation points and needed replacement slats, just to apply for a grant to extend the tank outside the building, provide your external agitation point, and then you'll get a grant on replacing your slats.
Perfect. I see another question here. Will soil samples taken in July 2020 be okay for the fertilizer register requirements in 24?
So the fertilizer register as such doesn't have a requirement for soil samples. I suppose accurate soil samples will be taken every 5 years, but you don't need soil samples for the fertilizer register. You need them for acres, and to be eligible for acres, they have to be taken after the 1st of the 1st 2022.
So here's another question here. Can you clarify when I need to complete acres course in acres 1 or possibly acres 2?
Yeah, so we would want all the acres 1 courses done at this stage. I know in this office we've them all done. You would want to be getting that done sooner rather than later. Not sure what the deadline is for that, but you'd want to be getting that done. Again, it should be something similar to the interim balance and payments there, that they delay the payments. For acres 2, for tranche 2, you'll be looking at getting the course done in the back end. There is when the course will be running again.
Perfect, thank you. Another question here. Can a farmer apply for more than one application under TAMS?
Yeah, they can. They can apply for as many applications as they want. I suppose the restriction is on the 90,000 on the funding, so they can apply for as many applications as they want to get up to that 90,000. So it's the funding that's restricting them.
Perfect, thank you. Does the soil sampling completed under the Department of Agricultural Pilot's soil sampling program suffice for the acres program?
Yes, it does. The only one thing to be careful of is soil samples in the first pilot program that were taken in the back end of 2021 may not be eligible. So they have to be analysed after the 1st of the 1st 22, but 90% of them were taken in the springtime, so they would nearly all qualify, yeah.
Perfect, thank you. I see one here. How much slurry can be imported if P index is level is 4 and above?
So again, that's why I put up that second table. I suppose the slight confusion with the P indexes is that they don't stand alone. They're linked to your stocking rate. So your stocking rate would have to be calculated or checked first, then your index, then your allowance is calculated from that. So like the table said, 85 and below, an index of 85 kilos of nitrogen and below, and an index 4. It was a 4 you said? Well, an index 4 would have a 0 allowance for P anyway.
Perfect. Thank you. Another question here. Am I open to legal inspections this year when I'm scored on year 1, 3, and 5?
League inspections, you're eligible for from the department. I assume they can inspect that anytime through the course of the 5 years. League walks carried out by us or other advisors can be, so you can bring them forward. So you can bring your year 3 league walk forward to year 2 if you wish.
Perfect. I'm going into a 5-year lease with my father for a portion of a farm. I've just completed the green cert. Am I eligible to apply for TAMS for the leased land?
So it's a joint herd number. Yeah, you are eligible on the lease land as long as you have a lease for 5 years. If it's a joint herd number, it'll be even though you are a young farmer, it'll be at the lower rate at the 40%.
And just to watch the date on that as well, like you're 100% Colin, but the 5-year lease on for lease land for TAMS, it's 5 years from the date that you're making the claim. So in other words, when you have your work done
You
and
need
you're
it
putting
5
in your
years
claim for
after.
payment, it's 5 years from that date, not the 5 years from when you apply.
Do the application. Yeah, thanks.
Perfect. I see one there now after coming in. Can you use the yellow drainage pipe as a protector for your tree planting?
No,
Guard.
the tree plants have a specified guard in the terms and conditions of acres. So it has to be that light polythene guard with the flanged out top and a certain height. So if you want to check with your advisor, he'll give you the exact spec on the guard, but no, yellow drainage pipe will not suffice. No.
If you apply for TAMS 3, can you make changes to your application after being approved, or can you amend it?
No, you can't. You can't amend your application, or you can't change it. I suppose you can maybe reduce if you get, say, approved, say, on 1,000 meters of fencing. When you do your claim, you can claim on 800. Say that's okay. You can do less than you have been approved for. But no, you can't amend your application, or you won't get paid on a greater amount than you're approved for, but you can do less of an amount, but you can't amend the application. Once it's done, the system closes and you can't amend it.
Perfect. Thank you. Do you need planning permission for slatted houses, or is it over a certain measurement?
You do, yeah. You need planning permission for any tanks. You need to get planning permission for any tanks. Suppose it's the local county councils really, but yeah, you need planning for any tank.
Perfect. I see one about soil samples there. How many soil samples are needed to be taken per hectare? Or how many soil samples does a hectare do?
One soil sample will cover 5 hectares for acres. That's the requirement. I suppose we'd recommend when you actually go out to soil sample the ground that you soil sample it according to the ground. So if you're in a 10-hectare field, a 10-acre field, a 5-hectare field, and the bottom of it runs off into bottomy ground, well then we'd recommend maybe splitting that field into a 3 and a 2 or something like that to get an accurate reading. But one for every 5 hectares is the minimum.
Perfect, thank you. For TAMS, do you need the planning approved before you submit your application, or before you put through your application there?
You do. You have to have your planning permission has to be gone through and approved before you do the application. Yeah, you can't do that application till you have your planning.
Perfect. See another one there. Can second-hand machinery be bought for the organic scheme under TAMS?
No, you have to you have to buy new equipment. I think as far as I know, there is an option there to trade in machinery. You can put that again. You can trade in second-hand machinery and buy your new machinery. But no, you can't buy. There's nothing. Second-hand machinery isn't eligible to purchase.
Caillin, we just take one or two more questions now. It's just we're at 9:05 here now. So
Yeah, no bother. Another question here. I have not signed up for the fertilizer register. Can I still do so, or is it too late?
No, you can still sign up. So if you contact your advisor, he can sign you into it there, or you can go onto your own ag food account and sign up to it. Just if you do not do that, if you go to the co-op to buy fertilizer this year, you won't be able to buy it. So you do need to do it sooner rather than later, probably.
Thank you. I think that could be all the questions we have for tonight here now.
very
Yeah,
good.
that looks like them all. Yeah.
Thanks, Caillin. Well, look, just first of all, just to thank the large numbers. We've a lot of people now attended tonight's webinar, so thanks for your participation in attending and all the questions that you've put through as well. Hopefully we have got around to all the questions that was put in. Just to thank Kevin and Colm for their presentations and for their answers to the questions, and indeed Caillin for putting those questions forward as well. Just our next webinar is of a Tuesday night. Now it's not of a Monday night just because of Easter Monday. So it's on Tuesday, the 2nd of April. And Charlie Devaney from the Castlerea office will give an update on the SCEP scheme and also an update on the future beef future beef farms as well. So that's on the 2nd of April at 8 o'clock. But for now, as I say, thanks again for tuning in, and sure we'll talk to you then. Good night, everyone.